Hi all, welcome back to One Field at a Time. So we're not away this weekend, and we're away next week at the Bogey Race, so remember to check out that video once we get it uploaded. But what I thought I would do this weekend is show you how I get my caffeine fix when we're away. So you may have noticed while we've been away and in the earlier videos, I always put a segment in of making a coffee in the morning. Now I am self-confessed caffeine addict and also a bit of a coffee snob. So when I'm at home, I'm really spoiled. So I have my favourite piece of kitchen gadgetry, which is a Sage Barista Pro, which is an absolute weapon of a machine. Something I've always dreamed about, and luckily enough I got the opportunity to treat myself not too long ago, and I absolutely love it. But as you can appreciate, that machine is not very light and not very practical to be taken in the caravan. I'm not too sure Sammy would be too happy if she saw me bringing that along and putting that in the boot or the caravan while we're away. And also, 90% of the time we're off grid, so you need a good 240 volt connection for that one to work. And I'm sure running that off an inverter is going to really drain my batteries. So I've got a couple of solutions to show you for when we've got a bit of electric, and two, off-grid solutions. And then I'll tell you which one's my favourite one. And I'll show you a few ways of how to use them and what my chosen recipes are. So these are my three solutions for when we're in the caravan. So we've got the Nespresso pod machine. This one, obviously you need 240 volt. 90% of the time, as I say, we're off grid. But when we are on grid and we've got a bit of electric, then this one's really useful and you can give it a whirl. We've got the Aeropress, which is a really simple bit of kit but makes a cracking cup of coffee. And then you've got the traditional French press, which is one that I'm sure all of you will see all the time and what have you. So yeah, they all make a decent cup of coffee in their own right. They've all got their own pros and strengths, which we'll run through and stuff. So yeah, so these are really good. The French press one I actually take into the office with me and stops me whipping across to the coffee shop, spending £4 a go on coffee whenever I want a decent coffee when I'm at the office. And yeah, so yeah, let's work through them. I'll show you a few different recipes and things and a few different things I do with them. But yeah, let's see what we get up to. So first up is your Nespresso machine. A pod machine, really good. Like I say, for me, it's the best one out of all the pod machines. Just a little pod that you need to use. You can see here, really small. You can get refillable ones and stuff, but I think they're a bit of a faff. They're all getting a little bit better about making them recyclable as well, because there's a big thing obviously about sort of these not being recyclable and not being very sort of environmentally friendly, which we all should be quite conscious of these days. So yeah, so I've just plugged the Nespresso machine in and I will get it warming up. I'll get myself an espresso cup and let's pull ourselves a shot of espresso using the Nespresso machine. So obviously what you need to do is obviously have electric 240 hook up first really. Like I say, I think this would really drain your battery if you ran it off an inverter. I suppose if you was running lithium batteries and things it wouldn't be so bad. So what you do, you pop your pod in, push your little lid down, get your espresso cup in there, and then it helps if you turn the machine on. So on this particular Nespresso machine you have two little buttons. Let me show you just there. So you have, obviously, if you can see it well, a smaller shot and a taller shot. Generally, you need the smaller one. So we just press the button. You'll hear it fire up. Quite a satisfying little sound when it pops. And there you have it. Really good little machine. Like I say, my favourite for the pod machines. Makes a decent cup of espresso. It's nice. And sets you up on your day. But let me take you to the next solution, because obviously we go off grid most of our time. So I don't have the luxury of using an espresso machine. And I'm not sure it's my favourite as well. So let me show you the next one. Okay, so this is the French press or cafetiere, and it's my option number 2, and it's a really good option for when you're off grid and really simple to use, really cheap. I think I picked that one up probably off Amazon or something like that for £5 or £6. Don't need to use lots of coffee in this one as well, so that sort of makes it a little bit more cost efficient. and things. So yeah, so my recipe for using this one is obviously the most important bit, the coffee. I tend to just use about a tablespoon, so it's only me who drinks coffee in the house. I never really make coffee for anybody else. And the trick is, I feel, to making a decent one, is just covering your coffee and letting it bloom for about 30 seconds or so. Like I say, I am a bit of a coffee snob, and there's all different recipes you can use and methods. Some people feel it doesn't make a difference, some people feel it does. I quite like it, I enjoy my coffee, so I like to put a little bit of effort into getting a decent cup. Sets me up for the day, and helps me along really. So yeah, so we let that settle and bloom, as I say, for a little bit, and then once it's bloomed, just bring it up, enough water to make as much coffee as you want. This one, just making a nice small cup. Obviously you need some boiling water. I'm at home today, so I boiled the kettle. Obviously when we're away and we're off grid, I'll boil some water on the stove or on the K-DAC. And if we're going really off grid, on the fire, that we build a little fire pit. So yeah, so you let that stew for a bit. I usually like to give it a good sort of solid few minutes really. And then all you want to do is bring the press down. Nice steady push. Brings it down. Stops some of the bits getting into your drink and making it a bit sludgy. Thing with a French press is you do get that sort of quite sort of sludgy coffee. It's not as clean as some of the other ones. It's not a filtered coffee. So sometimes that can be a little bit off-putting for people, but I don't mind it, I quite like it. And then get yourself a nice little cup. Pour yourself a cup of coffee. So yeah, so that's the French press cafetiere. Not a bad cup. Not quite as strong as your espresso, but not a lot of people like to drink espresso straight. They like just a normal straight up cup of coffee. I drink espresso and just black coffee. Very rarely have milk in my coffee, but obviously you can add some milk to this, oat milk, any type of milk you want, and sweeten it to your taste. So yeah, so that's my option number 2. So we'll move on to my next option now, which is the Aeropress. Now, so this one is the Aeropress. This is the one you'll see a lot of influencers using. Loads of pushing about these on sort of Instagram and stuff like that. But for me, they are a really good kit for making, good bit of kit really for making a really decent cup of coffee. It seems so simple, but I'd have to say this probably makes one of the best cups of coffee you'll ever have. So let's show you how this one works. So it comes into parts. So you've got like the basket just there, just twists off, and then it comes into 2 pits here. So this is your plunger, and that's your main chamber that holds your coffee grounds and your water. In the box, when you buy it, what you get, you just get a little scoop, so it gives you a nice little measure of how much coffee you want to be putting in. You get a big pack of sort of filters, not overly expensive as well to replace. And in all fairness, I've had this one for a good couple of years now, and I'm still on my first pack, and I use it a lot. So that's really good. So yeah, so what you need obviously is your coffee. Normal ground coffee does it, it's fine. If you like to go to sort of like your specialist roasters, a lot of them do a special ground for the Aeropress, so you get the best yield, which is really nice. I do like a good sort of artist, sort of like coffee person, I don't know what you'd call it really, when they're a specialist in the coffee. We've got a really good one here in Hull, called the Blending Room. So yeah, so we've got a really good one here in Hull called the Blending Room. Make some of the best coffees around. I love to take a little batch of that away with me. I either pre-grind it before I go, or take it whole. So yeah, so to make this cup of coffee, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. The traditional way of doing it is take yourself some filters. Me personally, I like to use 2, it just gives you a cleaner cup. You can use 1. You can get reusable ones of them, talking about sort of sustainability and things like that, and trying to be a bit more carbon neutral, let's say. But I tend to choose the paper ones, they're recyclable and stuff like that. So yeah, so you just pop 2 of them in there, as you can see. You clip it on and twist it, and the traditional way is to pop it on top of your cup, take yourself a scoop of coffee, fill your scoop up, usually works out about 18 grams of coffee, and then you pour it in and add your water. Now, that's the traditional way of doing it, not my chosen way of making a coffee using an Aeropress. It tends to sort of, you've got to get a bit of an airlock in there when you put that on. It tends to sort of like drip through quite slowly and things. So I like to do what they call the inverted method, and I believe that gives you a better cup. So the inverted method is, you don't put your cap on just yet. I'll leave the filters just in there. But your plunger, you pour it in. I tend to take it out to the number 4 and then sit it. Obviously try and make sure it's sat securely and upright, because yeah, if it falls off with hot water in it, then you burn yourself, or the kids as usual as they're walking around and stuff. So yeah, so just make sure you got it nice and secure and steady. I add my coffee just in, just add a little bit more into there, so I've got a full scoop. Then add your water. Now, it depends on how strong you want your yield, really. Me, I like to get a taller cup out of this. So, I bring my water up and just bring it up to about the top. Then you want to just agitate it slightly. You do get a paddle with this. I've left it in the caravan, so I'm just going to use the handle just to move it about, give it a few stares. Now, you can get really nerdy with this, I'll be honest. There is actually an Aeropress World Championships where baristas go and try and win the title of making the best Aeropress cup of coffee and barista of the year and things like that. So yeah, and they're down to the grams of how much water you're putting in, and how many times you even agitate it and things, and how long you leave it to rest for. I'm not that nerdy, a little bit nerdy with it, but not that nerdy with my coffee. So you've agitated it, you've done that. Remember, you've got your filters in there. I like to go with 2, but you can get away with 1, as I say. Just pop that on. And then just leave it for a minute or so, just to brew away. Once you've brewed it for as long as you want, what you'll then do is get your cup, I pop it on, and just a confident flip over. And then all you do is a gentle press. And bring it all the way down until you hear it hiss. Now, a lot of people say that's the point at why you stop. I find that hissing quite satisfying, I'll be honest with you. And it's easier to get the puck out at the end if you just take it all the way. So I bring it down until it's got rid of all the air, and just give it a little push and a little turn. And for me, that compresses the coffee right down. It makes it a little bit easier to dispose of. Then you take it out, and then you've got your cup of coffee. Really nice, much cleaner than the French press. You get a taller cup out of it, because it doesn't traditionally make espresso. There is ways of doing it and methods and things, but for me, the easiest thing to do here is just make yourself a decent tall cup of coffee, Americano. Very nice. Then, once you've finished your cup of coffee, cup's in the sink, there's this just to clean up. Really easy to clean, really easy to maintain, so simple. You literally just twist the head, pull it off, and you'll see it leaves the filters behind. These aren't reusable, and you'll see just under there is where the puck is for the coffee. What I'll intend to do is just straight into the bin at home. I have my own little puck box, and you just push it out and it comes out. Give it a little tap. Give it a little run under the sink. And that there is about done, ready for the next one. Pop your lid back on, give it a little twist, make that look harder than what it needed to be, and then pop it away for the next cup. So that's my 3 solutions for a cup of coffee when we're away. Obviously you could use instant coffee. Like I said, I'm a bit of a snob, don't drink instant coffee. I like to make a little bit of effort with coffee. I think it is sort of like, it's really good and it's something to be enjoyed. And you do appreciate a really good cup of coffee when somebody's made the effort to find a decent blend and take the time to brew it. I think it's just worth that little bit of extra effort. And it sets me up for the day as well. So, out of the 3, which one would I say is my favourite? I think they've all got strengths and weaknesses really. Nespresso, so convenient. The pods are super easy to get a hold of. They're nice and simple. There's no mess with them. So for me, I see sort of like, that's why people really like the pod machines. There's literally no fuss. You pop it in, press the button, get yourself a decent cup of coffee out of it. Obviously the drawback with this is you need the power, as I say, it needs to be plugged in. And if you're going off grid, it just doesn't work. And like I say, I wouldn't like to push my battery to a point of what that would do for a cup of coffee really. And I drink a lot of coffee, so it'll be on a lot. So that's your Nespresso. Your French press, again, really good, inexpensive solution. Makes an half decent cup. Like I say, I think sort of like the coffee solids that come through and things on these, I'm sure if you invested in a more expensive one, less would come through. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off with these really. I think the other thing with this is it takes quite a lot of cleaning. It doesn't make a puck, it's not just a capsule you can throw in the bin. So it does make a bit of a mess. You've got to sort of rinse it out. If I rinse it in the caravan and it goes down the pipes, it stinks and I get in trouble for it. So I always have to rinse that one out in the field somewhere if I've got that one. So that's your French press, and then you've got your Aeropress, which is really compact. You don't need no electric, and it makes a decent puck, so it's really easy to clean and maintain. No bits on it to break as well. It's not the cheapest bit of kit, but it's relatively sort of, I don't think inexpensive is the right way, but it's not an astronomical cost to put people off. But yeah, it's not as cheap as your French press, but definitely not as expensive as an espresso machine. So I think sort of cost-wise as well, I think this Nespresso machine was in around about £100. This, as I say, was between £5 and £10, and then this was around about £30. So I can imagine some people probably look at that and think, well, it's just a tube of plastic for £30, but it does make a really cup of coffee. So for me, which one's my favourite? I would have to go, and I'm probably sure you've already guessed by the way I've been talking about them, is the Aeropress. I even use this at home sometimes, and as I say, I've shown you my machine that I've got in the Sage Barista Pro, which makes as good a cup of coffee at home as what you'd get out in one of the fancy coffee shops or something like that. But when I'm out and off grid, with no electric, and even when we've got electric, I must say, the Aeropress is my go-to and my winner for getting a decent cup of coffee when you're camping. So yeah, so that's us. I'll link some videos in the descriptions in terms of the Aeropress and some of the recipes that you can get if you're interested. It'll show you sort of some of the other bits you can do and give you some inspiration. I'm not affiliated with Aeropress, it's not being gifted to me. Bought this out of my own money, as is the same with Nespresso, and the French press is just a generic one from Amazon. So yeah, so Aeropress is the winner for me all day, every day. We're away again next weekend, so we're doing the bogey race, so we'll get a video for that. Keep an eye on our Instagram at one field at a time as well, and see what we get up to there, because that'll be a little bit ahead of the video. Obviously the video will probably come the weekend following our trip to the bogey race, and we're with the bogey Leeds DA for the bogey race again, so really good DA, so check them out. Google them, comes up with a really good website, easy to book. Really modern DA to be using. So yeah, so that's me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the video, tell your friends about it. It really does help the channel. We're new, we're building, and we will see you in the next one.